I'm Susan, 35, standing in the middle of my wedding reception, surrounded by laughter and love. I can't help but cast my mind back to that fateful Christmas dinner. It was a night that changed everything, a turning point in my life that led me to this moment of pure happiness. Growing up in a small town in Texas, I was the daughter of strict and traditional parents, Margaret and Henry. My mother, Margaret, was a perfectionist who always had high expectations for me, especially when it came to my appearance. She was constantly criticizing my weight, telling me that I needed to lose a few pounds to be more attractive. My father, Henry, was a quiet man who rarely spoke up against my mother's harsh words. He would often try to smooth things over, but his efforts were usually in vain. As a child, I struggled with my weight and my self-esteem. I was always the biggest girl in my class, and I often felt like an outsider. My mother's constant criticism only made things worse, and I began to develop a negative body image. I would starve myself for days, only to binge on junk food later. The cycle of dieting and binging took a toll on my physical and mental health, and I felt like I was trapped in a never-ending nightmare. When I was 18, I decided to leave home and go to college in the city. I thought that getting away from my mother's constant criticism would help me to feel better about myself. And for a while, it did. I made new friends, joined a few clubs, and focused on my studies. I even started dating a guy named Tom, who seemed to like me for who I was. But as the years went by, I realized that I couldn't escape my mother's words. They were always there, lurking in the back of my mind, reminding me of my flaws. I began to feel insecure in my relationship with Tom, and I would often push him away. Eventually, we broke up, and I was left feeling alone and lost. After college, I landed a job at a marketing firm in the city. I was good at my job, and I quickly rose through the ranks. But despite my professional success, I still felt like something was missing in my life. I was still struggling with my weight and my self-esteem, and I couldn't seem to find a way to be happy. Then one day, I met a man named David at a marketing conference. He was charming, intelligent, and kind. He didn't seem to care about my weight or my appearance. He saw me for who I was, and he made me feel like I was the most beautiful woman in the world. We started dating, and our relationship quickly grew stronger. David was patient and understanding, and he helped me to overcome my insecurities. He encouraged me to love myself for who I was, and he supported me in everything that I did. A year later, David proposed to me. I was overjoyed, and I said yes, without hesitation. We decided to get married in the fall, and we started planning our wedding. As the wedding date approached, I began to feel nervous about introducing David to my parents. I knew that my mother would have something negative to say about him, and I was afraid that she would ruin our relationship. But David was confident and reassuring. He told me that he could handle my mother and that he was looking forward to meeting her. On Christmas Eve, we drove to my parents' house for dinner. When we arrived, my mother greeted us at the door. She gave me a hug, but her eyes immediately went to my waistline. "You've put on a few pounds, haven't you?" she said, without even saying hello. I felt my face flush with embarrassment, but David quickly stepped in. "She looks beautiful," he said, putting his arm around me. "I'm the luckiest man in the world to have her." My mother's eyes widened in surprise, but she didn't say anything. We walked into the house, and I introduced David to my father. My father seemed to like him, and they started talking about sports. As we sat down at the dinner table, my mother began to make small talk. She asked David about his job and his family, and he answered her questions politely. But then she turned to me. "So, Susan, have you been working out lately?" she asked. "You know, it's important to stay in shape." I felt my stomach knot up, but before I could say anything, David spoke up. "Susan is perfect just the way she is," he said firmly. "I love her for who she is, not for her weight." My mother's face turned red with anger, and she opened her mouth to say something. But before she could, David continued. "I know that you're just trying to look out for her, but your constant criticism is only hurting her. She's a beautiful, intelligent, and kind woman, and she deserves to be treated with respect." The room fell silent, and I could feel the tension in the air. My mother stared at David for a moment, Then she looked away. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "I didn't mean to hurt your feelings." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My mother had never apologized to me before. I looked at David, and he gave me a reassuring smile. After dinner, we sat in the living room and talked. My mother and I had a long conversation, and I finally told her how much her words had hurt me. She listened to me, and she promised to try to be more supportive. As we drove home that night, I felt a sense of relief. I knew that our relationship with my parents would never be perfect, but I was grateful that David had stood up for me. He had shown me that I was worthy of love and respect, and he had helped me to finally let go of my past. A few months later, we got married in a beautiful outdoor ceremony. My mother and father were there, and they both looked happy. My mother even complimented my dress, and she told me that I looked beautiful. As I stood at the altar, looking into David's eyes, I knew that I had found my soulmate. He had helped me to overcome my insecurities, and he had shown me what true love was. And as we danced the night away at our reception, I felt like the luckiest woman in the world. Looking back on that fateful Christmas dinner, I realized that it was a turning point in my life. It was the moment when I finally found the courage to stand up for myself, and it was the moment when I finally learned to love myself for who I was. And I know that no matter what challenges we may face in the future, David and I will always have each other.